Joining us today for our webinar, we have Beth Stroshane. Beth is Managing Partner of Applied Building Information, an independent spec writing firm based in Seattle. Beth works on a wide range of projects for both new and renovated buildings, serving the public and private sector. Beth is an active member of CSI and the BSD SpecLink Advisory Committee and speaks across the country at industry events. Also joining us today, we have Laura Dempsey. Laura is the Vice President of Sales for the Owner Channel at BSD SpecLink. Prior to BSD, Laura managed the consulting arm at RS Means for 17 years, focused on lifecycle studies, facilities budget, and legal disputes between owners and general contractors. And now for the webinar, I'd like to turn it over to Laura. Laura?
Great, thank you, Sarah. So we thought we would start off today with doing a recap, since this is a four-part series of going back over what we discovered in webinar 1 and 2. And then at some point throughout this, we'll be talking a little bit about how BSD works with SpecLink. And then the two main things that we'll focus on this time around are the two scenarios around what is the current industry practice around managing and maintaining duplicative masters, or what we refer to as multiple masters. And then the other scenario that we often see with owners and design firms is one massive master. And how can we use SpecLink to be more efficient, and if there's a better way forward using SpecLink managing those masters. Then we also want to talk a little bit about how SpecLink, the intelligent links, work, and how you can use that as a way to be more efficient in managing those masters. And we've invited Beth here today because she's a master at working with SpecLink and really working with very complicated masters for owners as well as other design firms. But one of the things is we asked her to set up a demo using two scenarios. One was for managing the masters piece of it, and then also how does that reflect back and how does it create efficiencies on a project scale as well. And then we'll open it up for questions. We'll take a break in between some of those demos so that way if there's questions about the masters, we can address those at that time. And then we can also address questions about the project and how that helps downstream. So in the recap of webinar 1, we had a discussion where we wanted to try the baseline, just kind of set it the standard of understanding the difference and the distinction, because there's a little confusion in the marketplace about the differences between design guidelines, guide specifications, and project specifications, and where their place is on the construction continuum. So really the most important piece that came out of that was just trying to understand really the link between pre-design all the way through to facilities. And what has happened over the course of time is that all of the tools that we use in each of these silos have become digitized in a database format. The one piece that has remained static and in Word documents or PDFs or published in PDFs is actually specifications and project specifications and guide specifications. And where the owner has a true responsibility and can develop good design guidelines and guide specifications to actually help not only bridge the gaps here, but also be able to incorporate facilities feedback so that we can actually realize some gains out of Lifecycle. And if we don't digitize these things, the architects and the design professionals really don't have an opportunity to leverage what the owner actually produces, and it causes a lot of change orders and causes a lot of issues downstream just in the maintenance and management of a bunch of Word documents. We don't have any real way to map it up to our design models to find out if what we're actually producing as project documentation is actually making it to the general contractor and we get what we need at the end. So that was really the recap of webinar 1. Then we got to webinar 2 where we got to talk about cake. And I made the analogy, or brought up the analogy about chocolate cake, and that this is being the desired outcome for an owner, that they present their design guidelines as some way of being able to describe what it is that they're looking for and what things they might need you to pay attention to as a design professional. And then how they can do that is actually through their guide specifications. Otherwise, we could end up with unlimited options for the design professionals to be able to develop whatever they would choose. But if the owner has a real distinct idea in mind, then they really should be producing not only design guidelines, but also guide specifications. This actually helps for the design professional then to now marry up and to build off of those guide specifications to now create project specifications. And depending on whether or not it's a performance-driven requirement, which often it is, and especially in public agencies, or if it's a private, then we can actually go with a branded specification as well. And however well we do this is where we get to the build project from the general contractor, which hopefully we will end up with exactly what we're looking for, and then the owner is happy and everyone is happy downstream. But if it doesn't happen well, and we end up with a lot of miscommunication in documents that we weren't able to produce good documentation, we end up with the wrong thing at the end. And next thing you know, we are now in change orders, and it's costly for everyone to go back and figure out where the missteps happen. So now let's talk about a little bit about the current master maintenance. I work with a lot of owners. It's very common to have a specs committee or a standards committee, and everyone, I always call it the ivory tower, but that's because that's how I am. So everybody at the executive level and all our managers tend to think that we have this easy, elegant process, and it's all very well laid out, and it's all very civilized. Where are we going to start? Let's say we're going to start the process of updating our master, our guide specs. We start to propose the changes. We end up in meetings and we review. Then we start to do change logs. Then we start to incorporate those changes, and then we issue updates, and it's all very civilized, and everyone is happy. Beth, would you like to tell us what you experienced on your end and what's the truth?
I've worked on many of those kind of guide specifications, and this is kind of really what my experience is on the other side. And this may or may not be your experience at all. You start the process. First, you have to find all the files, and they might be on Joe's hard drive, and Joe took 2 weeks off for moose hunting season in Alaska. Then you send 300 emails, or you try to find the 300 emails that someone sent you about changes that need to happen. But they're not clear emails, so you have to send 300 questions about the emails back in more emails. So we're up to 600 emails, but you've got 5 people CC'd. So really, I can't do the math that fast. Then you have 27 meetings. You try to consolidate 10 conflicting spreadsheets from 8 different authors. And this is about the time everybody starts looking for a different job before you have to start over. So the civilized process is not actually all the steps, at least in my experience.
Thank you, Beth. So let's talk about the current project practice. Let's say we've updated our master and now we're going to start a new project. Again, the civilized process, and the easy way to look at this, or how it's perceived, is we now start the project, and now we have to go through and remove all the sections that don't apply and start deleting out the paragraphs that are not a part of the job. And then we have our 4 design review checkpoints at 30, 60, 90, 100%. And it's all very civilized, and it happens very seamlessly. Beth, what's your experience?
So my experience is that we start a project, a new master shows up. We've worked with this client 6 times over the last 10 years, but now we have to figure out what changed in the master. Is it fundamentally different, or is it mostly the same? And then we collect specifications that are being edited by 8 authors. So there's the civil engineer, the structural engineer, the HVAC engineer, 2 electrical engineers. Some are 3 versions old. And so that's a process of organizing sometimes 300 files and figuring out which 12 are from 3 years ago. And track changes are still a mystery to some. The idea you click the button and edit and don't click the button off. Still a mystery. There's 4 attempts at formatting. There's 3 attempts at file naming, because if you work for a large institution, you need the project number in the file name or you lose your mind. Just about the time you're done, you're holding it together, mental health is still intact, a new version of the master shows up, and you have to change out some files that you send to the guy who still has stuff from 3 years ago. And you lose your mind just in time to start another project.
Thank you, Beth. Let's talk about this, because we mentioned this in the last webinar that I put together a little ROI calculator. And while we're not going to go through it again today, I'll just let everybody know, because we got a lot of requests to get a copy of it. We're actually going to post it to the website. But the basic gist was, you can fill in the numbers to kind of understand, how many people do you have working as full-time employees as part of the project and design team? What's the average number of projects per year that they work on? What's the average number of spec reviews for a project? What's the average number of time that you spend per section? The average number of sections that you might be reviewing? And then we just use the nominal rate from RS Means for $150 an hour. And then it starts to spit out some calculations for you to let you know just exactly how much you might be losing onto a project. So when we worked on the calculator, it's like I just went through and just did a small project that you could have as much as lose as much as $3,000 on a small project. On a large capital project, you can have as much as $600,000 in added costs. But even the average design firm can have as much as $24 million in costs. And I understand that this is actually sunk costs for the most part, but what ends up happening is one of two things is going on. You are either taking the time to review everything and somebody is adding time to the schedule, which is unacceptable, or we're not reviewing it and now we're adding products that the owner didn't want, and now we've got change orders, which is unacceptable. With that, we're going to talk a little bit about how SpecLink is designed and how linking, the special links inside of it, help to manage databases or manage the master content better. And it also gives some advantage to the project design teams to be able to leverage those guide specifications to be able to produce project specifications. So again, we're in the cloud. So as an owner, you can have a master, or even as a design professional, you can have your own master and it sits in a SQL database. I like to think of the links as, everyone knows what Revit has clash detection for systems. This is clash detection for language and words. So if you have conditional things coming from the owner that says if a contract is over a certain dollar amount, then this condition applies. If it's a middle school, then we have this type of finishes. Those are things that you can link like groups together. So the way that that works is while it sits in the master, it's all linked together, and then from there it's a project overlay. Simply making a copy of it, all the links go with it, and now the project owner, the project participant, can now start to make some selections, and it's a user-guided experience. So everything that the owner wants to enforce is able to be picked up on and built off of once we get to the project file. And then from there, we end up with project specifications. One of the big myths that are out there sometimes that I hear from owners is that they have a tendency to think that guide specifications are a replacement for project specifications. They are not. Guide specifications are there simply for the guidance. A lot of times it's facilities feedback to then be able to help create a project, which then allows them to start to create project specifications and build off of what the owner is already looking for. So what if there is a better path using SpecLink to help manage not only masters, but then also to create some efficiencies in project specifications for your teams? What if it's not about one cake? What if it's about a bunch of cakes? What if you're managing multiple masters? What if you're an owner with multiple building types? How can we use SpecLink and the linking to help us better manage and organize all of our documentation and still make it efficient? So how do we currently survive this process? I'm going to turn this over to Beth now at this point so that way she can actually speak to it, and we'll go into the demos.
Okay. So kind of one way that people survive this process, if you've got lots of different building types, you create multiple masters. And I can't make this up. This is one owner's master. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 building types. And so what they did is they created 10 copies of the summary of work section, which means that if that owner ever makes any change, like their name, or the state that the project happens to be in, or the name of their CM who is supposed to answer the phone during bidding. So any of those changes will have to be made 10 times in 10 different templates to edit one change in one section. So this makes project specs easier because you've deleted the M stuff out of the C project already. So if C is maybe an interiors only project, you've already deleted all the enclosure stuff out. But you have to maintain the summary of work section that is the same fundamentally, and a gross part of it is the same over and over and over again. Okay, can we go to the next slide? And the thing to think about is how much time do you spend maintaining the many masters, much of which is exactly the same. How many times do you pay the same change order because you didn't find every location where it said you had to use, where you had to set handrails in molten lead, I'm not making that up either, and you didn't find it in one of the locations, so someone said, well, it's going to be a change order to not set it in molten lead, and you paid that change order before, but you haven't been able to keep up with the process to find every location in your 10 masters to fix it. How slow or non-existent is the update process, because you can't even find all the files. You've got Word files on Joe's computer for civil, you've got Word files on Mary's computer for landscape, and you've got Word files on Sue's hard drive for structure, and trying to get them all together. And then, how do you review how teams have edited your files? Because if you go to all that trouble to maintain 10 different masters, how do you still have time to look at what design teams did to your masters when it gets to project time? Okay, next slide. So the other way of dealing with that is to have one big master with lots of notes. So here's an example where this section, and it's part of Division 00, talks about if it's not a DBE project, then you delete this. And if it's a small works project, then you delete this part. And so you don't have to maintain duplicative pieces, but you have to do a huge amount more of review to at the project level to make sure that if it's not a DBE project, that this paragraph actually got deleted. And keep in mind that your sections are going to be 30 or 50 pages long, because you've got 4 or 10 or 12 different sets of information nested on top of each other. So next slide. So the challenges with this method are, how do you review how teams have edited your files? How do you find if they got all the delete, if not DBE? How many hours do you spend reviewing specs to see if the edits got made? How many hours do you spend reviewing specs from 3 years ago or 3 versions ago, where you get halfway down and think, I swear I fixed that. Oh, I did. I fixed that 1.5 years ago. And this section that I got from a design team is 3 years old. How many hours do you spend teaching people how to use track changes? I'm going to tell you this month, I've spent like 4 hours teaching people how to use track changes. How many hours do you spend teaching people how to format specs? Because if stuff as easy as headers and footers and putting project numbers in those 2 locations and in the file name, we have easily spent, my firm of 8 people, working on a project that has owner masters, 5 hours this week at $150 an hour. In addition, there is the cost that you spend, but then there's also the waste of human potential. I mean, anytime you have a task that makes people want to beat their head on their desk because it is tedious and unnecessary, that is a waste of human potential. So we want to avoid those kind of things. So next slide.
Let me go ahead and toggle this over to you, make you presenter. We're going to let Beth take over and share her screen so we can begin to see the demo of SpecLink, or the first one we're going to walk through.
Okay, so what we're going to look at first is the Office Master user experience. So if you're used to dealing with 500 Word files on various people's computers, this is where the BSD Master is, right here. Click this button, you have all the files. Even if Joe is gone on moose hunting, his files are here. So the pieces that you will work with when you're doing a master is, you can reduce it by active sections, so you don't have to deal with all 850 of them. You can just deal with the 5 that we're working with. And there's some important things that BSD allows you to do. So when creating a master, so you've got all of your files here, they're not buried, and then you can assign people to specific ones. So I can, at the project level. So I can assign and share this project with other people. And so this is where I would invite the authors that will be editing, and you can provide people edit. So these are the engineers that are helping you write your civil and structural and architectural sections, can have edit rights. You can provide comment rights to other people so that they can review and provide comments, and it all happens right here. You can also dictate which sections, and the ability to give certain types of access and be able to see certain type of sections is as much to do with being able to be respectful of people's time and help them focus as it is about security. If I walk into a massive department store or a mall and I'm just overwhelmed, I don't know where to go, as opposed to walking into a single store where I know the 5 things I need to deal with. So this helps you provide edit access to the people who need it, and you can control their interaction with the different sections. So that can happen here. So we'll look at how you can build efficiency into a master, because remember, your big goal of a master is to eliminate noise. So that's how getting people to focus on particular things, and not waste human potential by doing things that you don't need to do. Okay, so let's start with really easy things. We've got everybody in here. The first thing we want to look at is how we are going to edit our specifications. You can see here that there's 893 sections. That's really overwhelming. I'm going to look at only my active sections, 5 sections. I can deal with that. So one of the challenges is getting all of your sections formatted the same. Well, this is something that BSD is taking care of. Say that this is my standard format. I can change that format. I'm going to change it to the Canadian format because you can visually see that it's very different because it's lots of numbers. I'm going to apply it to the entire project. Now, every single section in this project by every single engineer is formatted correctly. You don't have to go through and try to figure out what they did in Word that's now blowing up when they hit enter. Every single time you hit enter and it makes the next number. Nobody has to go to a Word class to figure out formatting. BSD just takes care of it. And then, see, it's always a 2, and the 3, it renumbers. So all of that is taken care of here. And if later they come in and say, oh, the CEO, they no longer, or the university no longer likes this font, we are going to be more modern. We're not Canadian. Thank you very much. We're going to use this one. I can apply this to the whole project. One of the things that we do is when things are in draft, we have it in a different format than when things are finalized. So I can see instantly if someone is wandering around with the specification that hasn't been finalized yet. And if you were trying to do that in Word documents, you wouldn't be able to pull it off. It's just too tedious and manual. So all the formatting is in one place. The other thing that is in one place is the headers and footers. And this is near and dear to my heart because I spent 5 hours this week trying to get headers and footers right. So if I wanted to put a project number in this footer, well, look, the project number's there, the project name is there, but I want some random thing that says this project number is 2345. I can add that here. And it will show up on every single file. And I can change the header to say the most amazing owner. So keep most amazing owner in mind, and keep in mind the 2345 dash project name. So we have added those. We want to create so that's all the same, and we want it the same across all pages, and its project specifications. So we changed that in one place and hit save. So that allows you to do that in one place. And that task right there, I spent 5 hours this week, and I had a staff member spend another 5 hours this week working on a project to do just that thing. Okay.
Now you're saying that the client that you're working with is working in Word documents, and that's why it's taking you so long to do it. It's not taking you that long in SpecLink to do it.
Correct. So this is a project where the owner has standard specifications in Word documents. So I had to put the project number in the footer and the header and the file name, and that took hours and hours and hours. So what we're going to look at this right here, we're going to do, I'm going to print this section so that we can see what I just did. So see, we've got the most amazing owner at the top, and we've got our 2345 at the bottom. So that's going to be the same on every single section that I open. So the other thing that is super helpful is at increasing efficiency is a global term. And so what a global term is if you think about things that you put in 1 million times in a set of specs, or even 5. Things like the name of the architect, the name of the contractor, and in these references, this is contractor. There are times when contractor is called contracting professional. If you're in Canada, the architect is called the consultant. So it's those kind of terms where you're referring to the capital A architect, the capital C contractor, and the capital O owner. And when those change, you have to go find them and change them in 1 million different places. But as an example here, remember we saw the owner in the header. Well, I'm going to edit these global terms and go down here to owner, and they're alphabetized, thank goodness. And I'm going to change owner to Ohio University. Then, and it automatically saves. So now when I go up here and print just this section, instead of saying most amazing owner, it now says most amazing Ohio University. And we can put that owner name in this 1,000 times, and it would change it in every single location consistently. This is often accomplished by highlighting that in yellow and scrolling to eternity to find every yellow where it says owner name. Maybe it's in brackets. Sometimes it's in orange. But those are the kinds of things. So here is another, and so when you go up to another section that uses global terms, like the project title page, you can add the project name, the owner's project number, addresses, all of that will update as you edit these global terms. So putting global terms in your project in BSD will make it way easier for either your office to update those things before it goes to the design professionals, or for the design professionals to update those things once it arrives. So another, the next efficiency builder thing is links. And this is a powerful tool that allows you to edit specs on your worst day like it's your best day. Or have people less educated about what you want successfully edit your specifications. So we're going to go to our active sections, and we're going to open this section that has, this is that section that we looked at previously as the example of lots of masters that have a lot of notes in them. So here's our DBE project, and our small works are the project types here. And so one of the things that links do is if I link everything, and links are over here, you can see that to my DBE, I have 7 target links. That means when I click this off, I'm effectively clicking off 7 paragraphs that I would, in Word, have to find and delete. And then a reviewer would have to find to see if I deleted correctly. And then I would have to find them again to confirm that I deleted them correctly. This, you turn it off, they turn off. Small works, it has 3. So those are the kind of things that you can control with links. So I'm going to turn off the DBE, and we're going to scroll down here and find here. If I click on here, I can see that line 14, 40, and 44, and 64 should all be off. So there's no hidden magic here. You can see exactly where the links go. And if you want another link, you're like, oh, I missed one. And this is more challenging because this screen is shorter than it usually is. I can add a source link. I pick the link type, and I pick a green link, and I want it to be this, and I hit save. I have created a new link that now controls how different documents run. So I can click on that paragraph, and it will tell me what that paragraph is driving. So now, if I turn this, so this is a source link that goes to my DBE. If I turn this off, it will make DBE turn off, which will make all of those things turn off. So that's how the links can be built. And so some of the things that you can think about are, it could be one-to-one, like turn off these 7 DBE project only things. It can be one-to-many. We have created cross-specification or cross-section links to our lead division 1 section. And when that lead division 1 section is turned off, the lead paragraphs in every single section in our master turn off. So that task that would take thinking you deleted them all, running another PDF, search and destroy, thinking you deleted them all, run another PDF, search and destroy. This helps manage that process. Now, I'm a realist, and so it doesn't always, I'm one of those trust but verify kind of people. So one of the things that, and I'll turn my DBE project back on, so that you can see another feature that is really helpful, and that is tags. And tags are essentially a way to trust but verify. So you can use tags to check that all the information is in there or is not in there. So we're going to run, and tags are a way to say, I want this paragraph that is tagged to show up in a report. So here's an example. We created a DBE report. And I can start typing here and find all the DBE language. I want to include the full text. And I'm going to hit print. If I hit export, it makes a separate PDF that I can download, but I just want to show it on screen. So I'm going to hit print. That's faster. So it has my project name and information. Then I scroll down here, and all of this content is DBE. Those are the things, all those lines, every one of those lines of text, it's like 4 pages. Yes, it's 4 pages, is what a design team specifier would have to find and delete in this one section. Delete all those lines exactly like they're supposed to edit this correctly in Word. So what we're going to do, we're not going to do that. We've already built links that say, okay, we know all of those things are DBE. We are going to turn off DBE because this is a great big project. It does not have that requirement because the funding does not require it to have that requirement. So now I'm going to run a report to see, did it all go away? And because I always include full text, because that allows me to search and find where I've messed something up. Ooh, now it's only 2 pages. So this is where I created a tag at the very end. So in these cases, the provisions. Okay, so I need to find that and link it to DBE so that the next time I run that, it will work like I expect it to. So in these cases, the provisions. So I can go over here. Find the place that is tagged. Okay, so this paragraph is tagged DBE. I can either make that be not DBE if it was included as an error, or if it is included correctly, I go back here to links, and I go back here to DBE, and I scroll. I'm having problems with my screen. So I'm going to click to add a target link. I'm going to find that one I needed. Okay, so I need this one right here, 12. I need to create a paragraph link. I need to make it green. I need to drag 12. And hit save. So now when I adjust my screen back on my thing, now when I run my report,
Beth, while you're doing that, how often do you have to do this quality check with your kind of documents?
We do this quality check at our deliverable. The nice thing is that, because we add and remove sections all the time. So when we think we've got all of the lead information out, or all of the DBE fixed correctly, then we always want to double check. And I made the link backwards. So that's how we can solve the problems with it being turned on and off. And I'm going to turn this back on and turn it off, and that's what will kick the link through because I made a new one. So that's how you can create links that control data and then create tags so that you can use reports to confirm you've got it right. The other way that we use reports is to pull out specific pieces of information that you need someone to review. An example being, maybe there's 27 things in a 600-page document that the fire marshal needs to review. And you can run a report that essentially pulls the 27 things that they want for them to review to confirm we've got it right before we send them the whole document. So we use this for lead consultants to make sure we have the submittals right for the latest version of lead version 4 versus 4.1 versus any of the other ones. If you've done those projects, you understand. For interiors, if we are referring to a finish legend or if we're including all of the information in the specification so that we can coordinate that. We also use a report to check that we're not referring to any sections that don't exist in the job. And so those are ways that you could use that. And we built one for DBE and small works to make sure that we've got all of the information in correctly or all of the information out correctly.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
I'll stop for just a second and see, Sarah, do you have any questions? Are there any questions coming in? Because we said we'd take a break in between.
Thanks, Beth. One question we had that came in, when you're working with the owner's masters, how do those connect to SpecLink?
How do the owner's masters connect to SpecLink?
Yes. Are you able to use those masters within SpecLink?
Yes. So to get owner's masters into SpecLink is an import process. So it's a make sure the formatting is all like it's supposed to be and import into BSD and then export out of BSD and run a compare to make sure nothing got lost in translation or corrupt in the process. And so once that import happens, we can build this functionality into any content. This is not native BSD content at all. This came from a user who shall remain nameless. So does that answer your question?
I think it did, and there's also another answer to that question, and this is part of what we covered in webinar 2, and you're currently doing something right now with one of our owners, is that you can have the owner's master inside of SpecLink, and then they can invite you in as a project participant to update their master. So you'll be a guest in the owner's SpecLink to update their content and even SpecLinkify it if you decide. And then you also have the same functionality to where they can share that project. So they can create a project off of the master. Everything is coming as an overlay off of the master that sits inside of the owner's SpecLink. I think that's another answer to that question.
Yes. Some other things that are really important in SpecLink is how do you know what people did to your documents, right? What if they forget to turn on track changes? What if, well, we're still in the master kind of process. So what we want to talk about now is how do people interact with these masters? An example is you can assign people or invite people to comment on the master. So they can come in and comment. So as an example, I added new DBE content, new requirement from the latest law. So the person editing it, that's all that we know. Well, then my reviewer comes in and says the latest law is RCW 1234 and requires 10% participation. So this is how people can interact with providing comments to the master rather than collecting emails. Remember the 300 of them that come in over 6 months that by the time you get to reviewing them all, someone doesn't work there anymore or they're on vacation moose hunting in Alaska. If anyone talks about moose hunting in Alaska, it's 2 weeks and they're gone. They don't answer their phone. They take it very seriously. So that's how people, and you can reply to this and say 10% total or 10% DBE and 5% WB. You can reply with that and they can reply back to you. And then you can update the data. And say 10% total because they answered.
That's great.
Okay, so that can go in there and then you can come over here and you can resolve it and it goes away. So that's the process that you can use. You can collect comments this way from your commenters and then have your 3 meetings where all the information is in one place and you can systematically walk through the sections and you don't have the setup time of finding everything. Okay, so those are kind of the big master experience things. So now let's look at the user experience from the project side. And essentially what you'll do when you're creating a new project, and this is in the Office Master, and it's under the Office Master tab, what you'll do is I'm going to go to Projects. I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to create, or what are you creating? Ooh, I'm creating an active project. Where do you want to start? I want to start copy from an Office Master. Ooh, I want to use my BSD Webinar 3 Office Master. And then you fill in some project information. So that's how we get to this BSD Webinar 3 new project. And either this project can be provided to a design team or you can do a little bit more editing of it on your own. You can come in and we're going to go to the title page. I know that nobody else has problems with what is this project called? I have a job that is called the architect hired us to do specifications for UW toxicology. That's its name. And then 3 months later, we figure out that that's not its name at all. Its name is something else. So this is where you could give, you could get the project name. Project name, got there. Edit. Oh, it's gonna make me scroll again. Okay. So glad they're alphabetized. Okay, so we get down here to project name. It will default it to what you call it, but then you can rename it. So this is actually SPD Toxicology Lab Building 27 TI. That's its real name. Often they don't come in with their real names. And as soon as I do that, see, look, it came up, SPD, Toxicology Lab Building 27 TI. See, I'm really working good now. Then I go down to owner. Owner, address, owner. project number. You can update these global terms with the information you know is correct, and then every single one of your files will come back with the right information on them. So you can do that. You can update the global terms so that it's all correct, like it's supposed to be, not like someone made friendly weird names for everything. And then you can go to your built-in links so that you can make big sweeping edits like, is this a DBE project or not? So we're going to say it's not DBE, it's not small works, this one's big. And we can run our reports to make sure that it's all of the text comes through correctly. The other magical thing is I can, under edit, I can lock track changes. That means nobody can add anything.
Beth, I know what you did there, but I just want to say it out loud. You as the owner issued a project and you lock track changes on this document before it got issued to the project manager or design team so that they can't unlock them. Is that correct?
Correct. So you can lock it as the owner and be able to see every time something is added or removed. Sub must bring 24 donuts to every meeting. What else are we going to add? Ooh, there's new content. Maybe you as the owner want to say, okay, I added this, I want this accepted. I added this, I want this accepted. Okay, well, here is stuff that the design team has done. Bring donuts. Oh, the sanctions for non-compliance, I think we should delete that out. So you as the owner doing your review, you don't have to wait for them to send you files. You don't have to wait for them to compile them into PDFs to figure out that track changes is used incorrectly or that it's in some weird, I have no idea what. You can reply right here, say change rejected. Or whatever you want to say, so that they can then come back and say, dang it. And they can reply change removed. So that process, oops, I forgot to hit. So that process is documented, and then once it's all issued, you can resolve those comments. So this is how you can see how you can make quick edits to broad brush edit your specifications to get them close to where they need to be for your design team, and be able to see the changes they made. And another way that this is super helpful is maybe it's the end of DD and they bill you 40% for being complete with specifications, and you scroll through their specifications that you can see in BSD, and you can run a report of the things that you think should be edited by the end of DD to earn 40% and see that none of it's done, and you can say, too bad. So that's where you have a much more visibility into what's going on in your specifications. They're more efficient to build. They're easier to maintain, and it is much easier to review once they come back. So rather than spending hours and hours talking about track changes, just people being in this document and editing it, the changes will be on. And they don't have to format, and you can add text, and you can turn off turn off the view of track changes so that you can, or I can't right now, because so that it can be printed without track changes. So it changes the view of it without accepting them. So with that, mainly, we're gaining on having only 4 more minutes, so I want to stop there and see if there's other questions that people might have related to how specifications can be built on top of each other as a big master, but then use links to edit them effectively so that everyone is spending more of their time on the really important content and less of their time on chasing whether someone learned how to use track changes or did underline and strike out with font and the color orange, so that people can be focused on what is really useful.
Thank you.
Thanks, Beth. I know we're running out of time here. We have about 3 minutes left of the webinar. There's a lot of excitement around different options, the different ways that you can customize things like the headers and footers in there, but definitely want to allow time for the rest of the demo as well as any remaining slides that we have in these last 3 minutes here.
Beth, did you have anything more that you wanted to show? Because I don't believe we have any more slides. We are down to the questions and down to the hour.
Yes. So we can just answer questions.
Perfect. With the time that we have left, there are a lot of questions and interest and just general excitement around the headers and footers. I think a lot of people are suffering from the same obstacles here. Can you show us again what those headers and footers look like and how much you're able to customize them for us?
So new, you can insert an image. So if your university or whomever has a logo they must have, you can add, there's different fonts. There's bold. You can change this to include, they can be a row or a column. You can edit the table size, style. I can change, so thinking of the things that will show up, our typical header has the project number here, which I would add as a global term, and it has the section number over here, or section name over here. Or if I've got a project that has a very long name, University of Everywhere, Housing Project 203. So you can add all of that information in here, and it will show up in all of the sections. So all of that can change. I hit save. And then when I do this section, it's all there. The newest owner, I added my project number, but I didn't add it as a global term. University of Everywhere, Housing Project 213. So all of that can be edited and moved around however you want.
Perfect. Thank you so much.